Well, my name is Brinsley McNamara, and welcome to the Weird Ireland podcast. Irish stick fighting. Irish Irish stick fighting, also known as Bataireacht, is an old, lesser-known combat style from Ireland that involves using blackthorn sticks or shillelaghs to strike, batter, bludge. Irish stick fighting, also known as Bataireacht, is an old, lesser-known combat style from Ireland that involves using blackthorn sticks or shillelaghs to strike, batter, bludgeon, and defend against opponents. Although you're still more likely to spot a karate dojo over a Bataireacht club across Ireland, the martial art is growing here and abroad. Personally, I've almost exhausted everything I know about Irish stick fighting, so here with me today to tell me more about it is a Bataireacht instructor, Bernard Leddy. How are you doing today, Bernard?
I'm good, thank you, Brinsley. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me up here at your place to learn some more about this and practice some Bataireacht. By the way, do you call it Bataireacht? Do you call it stick fighting? What do you call it?
We call it Bataireacht.
Bataireacht, okay.
Bataireacht, or Bata for short. Or it's called Irish stick fighting.
Okay.
So everywhere outside of Ireland, we call it Irish stick fighting.
See, I notoriously am bad at pronouncing lots of things, but so I've just saying Bataireacht for a long time. Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, my Gaelic is pretty bad as well. It's been a long time since I spoke it. So.
Is there any other names for it? You gave the bunch there, but
there is loads of different names for it. Throughout Ireland, they would have different names, the same as everything in Ireland. The Irish language, you move from county to county, would have different nicknames and different sort of. It's called Boskin was another name for it as well. So every county would have a different name. And in fact, when you say about the shillelagh being a blackthorn, traditionally shillelaghs were all sorts of wood, and the name shillelagh is again not the proper name for it. Although the nickname shillelagh or shillelagh, which is the traditional Irish name for it. Shillelagh was the woods in County Wicklow where the English used to get their oak for their trees for their ships and stuff. So often they would see an Irish person with a stick and they would call it a shillelagh. Did you get that from shillelagh?
Right.
Kind of thing. So the all sorts of names. Different fighters would have different names for their sticks, and so everyone would have a personalised name for theirs.
All right, groovy. Thanks. And how would you describe in like a sentence or two or three Irish stick fighting?
Irish stick fighting is the traditional martial art of Ireland. The beauty of the system, it involves the whole body. So it's not just the stick, it's the hands, the head, the feet, everything gets used. It's a devastating system. It's not about competition, it's about sort of attacking and defence. So in Irish stick, I've gone over the three sentences now. So everything in Irish stick or bata is about defence and destruction. If you look at the faction fighting, which is where it was mostly used in Ireland, faction fighting is a multiple opponent fight. So you're not just dealing with one person. You'll probably be dealing with maybe 3, 4, maybe even 10. So when you're fighting in Bata, unlike traditional martial arts, and I've done martial arts since the age of 8, I have different black belts, different martial arts. But with Bata, when you're dealing with people, it's very destructive, very quickly. So we say rather than have 5 minutes of fighting, we'd have 5 blows rather than 5 minutes. So I'd rather hit somebody 5 times and then fall down to go and hit somebody else, because the more people you fight, the more energy you're going to use. So the less energy you use on one person means you've got energy to use on somebody else and energy to protect yourself as well. That's kind of a description now. I've gone off on a tangent again, but it didn't matter.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, like I'm starting with nothing. I'm starting with except that it has sticks. And there's fighting involved, and that's about where my knowledge ended. So the more I can hear, the better. I mean, how did you get into it? How long have you been practicing Irish stick fighting for?
I've been practicing now for over 10 years. I think about 11, 12 years. I got into it by accident, really. I used to teach Aikido. I was doing Wing Chun and other martial arts, and I had an injury at work. And I busted up my right knee, which put me out of action for about 2 years. So I had a couple operations on my knee and decided I was going to get back into the martial arts, but I needed to find another martial art because, martial arts involving the knees, like knee walking or shiko in Aikido, I couldn't do anymore. So I looked at other martial arts, and I went on a busman's holiday touring around all the different martial arts schools, trying all sorts, but everything is very similar. So one night, I'd like to say that I was compos mentis, but I had a few drinks in me. And I got on the internet and started looking again. And I thought something struck me about my own culture. What was there from Irish history that could link to me, being an Irishman? and link me to my past rather than promoting the cultures of Japan and the Philippines and China. What about Ireland? And that's why I stumbled across Glenn Doyle and Bataireacht, or the Doyle style of Irish stick fighting. And so I got up the next morning and I wrote him an email, and he said, "Yeah, come on over." So I went over and I trained with him, and I've been training with him ever since. And Glenn Doyle is the last, in my opinion, the last hereditary Irish stick fighter in the world. He was taught by his father, who was taught by his father, and so on and so forth. And we'll probably get on later on to how Irish stick fighting survived, because it died out mostly in Ireland. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
Groovy, groovy. I mean, let's get into that. In fact, I mean, how old do people think Irish stick fighting is? Is there written records going back hundreds years, kind of thing?
The thing about Bata is that a lot of the times the history is word of mouth. A great source for this is on Dukas. But traditionally, the kind of records we have are going back to the sort of 18th, 19th century, when it's from the British writing to the House of Parliament, when it's brought up in House of Parliament about how the Irish were, this faction fighting was going on, and how they could stop it, how they could, because it was showing a lack of control. Up until that point, a lot of the English didn't really care because the Irish were fighting amongst themselves. Now, for the history of it, it goes back even further, and people like me who believe it goes back to the Celts, because if you look at the sword work, because the stick is the substitute for the sword, a lot of training was going on with the shillelagh, primarily because metal is very expensive, and as a Celt, you've got the family sword. You're not really going to pass it over to your spotty 10-year-old to go and swing it in the woods or the trees and play, Dungeons and Dragons. You're going to give them a shillelagh, and a shillelagh was a weapon that they trained the youth on, and it was a weapon that was used in battle. That link, if we look at a tribe called the Harri, Harii, who are based in northern France, Germany, and one of their favourite weapons was a long walking stick based weapon. And the Harri were a very unusual tribe in the sense that they would attack at night, they would blacken themselves up with coal dust or oil, whatever they could find, peat, whatever they could find, and they would come out of the darkness and attack. And of course, the shillelagh was perfect for that. Now, I'm not saying they used the shillelagh because we can't prove that, but it sounds very similar, and especially with Celtic France, because Bata would have been a martial art throughout the whole Celtic Empire, which unfortunately the Romans got rid of. Anyway, we won't go into that. Still a bit sore about that. I know it's thousands of years ago, but it survived in Ireland primarily because we were left alone from the Romans, and it survived through a lot of history as well. It was never recorded, unfortunately, whether it was because it was a religious forefathers were very much into recording some of the Celtic myths and legends, but again, this is all done with a sort of religious overview. So anything like Bata was kind of hidden and not really spoken about. So that, I mean, my belief is it's very old. Other people will only go from reports and records. I mean, it was word of mouth, passed down within families. Fathers taught sons and daughters. It was an equal opportunity fighting system. There was no care about sexuality or anything like that. You also had factions, so each faction would have their own style or linked to another faction. So the styles in Irish stick are quite interesting as well. But anyway, I digress.
So there is evidence written that they're going back to the 19th, 18th century for sure, it looks like. But there is a widespread belief that it goes back medieval or Iron Age, even some kind of thing. Yeah. That's fascinating. But that sounds as a pretty established thing up until a point. So what happened? It fell off. It disappeared and almost entirely then came back in the 20th century. Would that be right to say?
No, it disappeared. It kind of nearly disappeared from history.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of things that happened that kind of came together to destroy it. You had the English were cutting down on the stick fighting, so they would go to markets and places where the fights were going on with guns, and they would break the fights up. So they banned fighting. The church was against it. You had the Young Irelanders earlier on who were trying to modernise the Irish resistance. So the shillelagh was looked at a weapon that was very old-fashioned, and they should be marching in columns like they did in Europe. Um, Lots of different reasons. Then, of course, the biggest reason was the famine. When the famine came, if you can't eat, you can't fight, because you're not gonna fight someone unless you're fighting over food. So a lot of times the because in shillelagh law, which is another topic we get onto, shillelagh law was the chivalric system of Irish stick fighting. So you had
Chivalric?
yeah, as in knights, and
right,
you had
right.
rules. There was rules about the fighting. So you had the fun fights, which we call the fun fights, what I call the fun fights, which is basically for a laugh. So you go and you beat the hell out of each other. And these would be done at marts, at fairs, and things like that, where people would meet up. And then you had the not fun fights, so the ones for honour, the ones for family. And again, these were more bloody and more destructive, I'd say. There's more fatalities at these. Anyway, with the famine, the arrival of the famine, mass immigration. And then you look at like the Gangs of New York, the film The Gangs of New York, where you had Liam Neeson and Brendan Gleeson fighting together with shillelaghs, supposedly. And this is all true. The Dead Rabbits were a faction in New York, again under Tamati, so they could get away with a lot of stuff. And these were factions from Ireland that went to New York who joined together to form the Dead Rabbits. So they would be gangs. In Ireland, they would have fought each other, whereas in New York, because of mass immigration, the Irish were seen as kind of second class, as no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. So the Irish joined together to look after each other, and this is how the Dead Rabbits were formed. So again, with the famine, the arrival of famine, people were not fighting anymore. The system was dying out. Mass immigration, and you had pockets of fighting going on afterwards. Like I said to you earlier, Brinsley, about my grandfather when he was a young boy, seeing two men fighting in Cavan, and this would have been the 1920s. One killed the other one by striking him behind the ear. You had people are coming up to me and they find out about stick fighting. They were telling me about different stick fighters in the area who unfortunately have all long since gone and departed this planet. So that's kind of how, and it was the revival of it, I suppose, would be the next line to go on to.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, tell me about the the revival of stick fighting. Did it happen here or abroad, or how did it happen?
How stick fighting survived, how our style survived, was my teacher Glenn Doyle, his great uncle, had to leave Ireland very quickly under British rule. So he went down to Wexford, and there was two ships. One was going to Tasmania, or Van Diemen's Land as it was called then, and one was going to Newfoundland, and he went to Newfoundland. Fortunately for him, Newfoundland is a big Irish centre. It's one of the few places in the world that has a Gaeltacht outside of Ireland. So a lot of the Irish systems and traditions survived, and that's how it survived. It was taught within the Doyle system, taught within the Doyle family. And when Glenn's dad would not teach anybody outside the family. It was a very closed system, as a lot of them were, very secretive. So your faction, you wouldn't share your secrets with another faction. Your faction would keep the secrets within their own family. And so what he did is, when Glenn's dad was dying, Glenn went to him and said, look, I have no children. When I die, this dies with me. So he asked permission to teach it. And he said, okay, go for it. So he did. And that's how it started to come back. So yeah, this is the revival. So the revival started. We started now. I've gone over and trained with him. I'm in contact with him all the time. We're training. And I'm growing the system throughout the world. And this is part of what we're aiming to do. My goal is to bring it home here to Ireland, which I'm hopefully achieving. But it's spreading throughout because people are recognizing the system as being pretty much a great self-defense system, great exercise. And it's a no bullshit system. So you're not spending time doing stuff that doesn't work. We don't do anything that doesn't actually work, or anything flash with spinning and jumping in the air. Firstly, because I'm too old and fat, but second of all, when we spin, you would give away energy, and that'd be 3 o'clock.
Or 3 o'clock and stuff. And how many is there? Is there like an international association governing body kind of thing of that kind of thing, or no?
No, it's not. It's not a political system in that sense. we teach it very old school. So we teach it. I try and make it as authentically Irish and as authentically close to what Mr. Doyle taught me, and Mr. Doyle, the values Mr. Doyle holds, as well as I do. And it's taught within factions. So every club will be a faction.
Right.
And then you'll have factions of the faction. So my faction is called the Fighting Hares. And the reason it's called the Fighting Hares is because hares are born with their eyes open, they've got claws, and they box, but also links into the puka, the ghost, the mysterious part of Irish mythology, which I think is fantastic. So we look at ourselves as kind of ghosts that disappear and appear, kind of Irish ninjas. But it's very much like the hare will fight for its family, and the hare will fight with its eyes open, and it'll box, and that's what Irish Stick's about.
Groovy. Would you say you're the only teacher or instructor in Ireland, or is there other ones based here?
No, there is. I'm the only style that I can find in Ireland is this style. We are the only style that I can see in Ireland. I've looked around. I have a couple of guys that are up to the level of what we call coach. So in our system, we kind of made the system easier by introducing ranks and grades. So to allow the students to work towards the next grade to help their development. But I also know that people can go to a coach who will teach them. And we have coach, and then we have instructor ranks. And coach is where a person gets to what's called level 4, where they can teach the system, and then level 5, where they become an instructor. So at the moment, we have one coach in Dublin, Nathan Featherstone. He's a good lad. We've got a couple of lads who are virtually there, nearly there. We'll get them up. But again, throughout the world, we've loads now. I think I have 18 instructors in the UK. And I think about 5 under me, and there's some that were under Glenn as well. Some great guys out there. So yeah, we're doing pretty good. We're going to get bigger and bigger. We're going to take over the world.
What's the I look forward to it. Awesome. What's the how does the ranking system work? At the top you have a chieftain. Would that be, or is there anybody above a chieftain?
No, instructor. So the chieftain is the rank given to me. And then above me is Glenn Doyle, so I'm the top man on the planet at the minute.
Class.
Which sounds
I'm
great,
honored.
but it's a rank that was given to me, and I respect it, so I hold the rank. Like I said, first one outside the Doyle family, so he kind of devised this rank to make sure that I could be high enough to run the system anyway.
Yeah, it's what kind of other, because you were talking about Bata being modernized a little bit in the recent while. Like, you didn't used to have levels, historically speaking, I'm guessing. How does it work these days? Is there belts? Is there colors attached to them, or what's the levels?
Well, the levels are just basically 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Level 1 to 3 is student. Level 4 is coach, and a coach is someone that can open a club, teach it. They're of a sufficient enough grade. I'll put my teeth in to teach and to grade to a level 2, and then above that you have instructor. An instructor is one who knows the system. But I encourage my instructors not just to stop at that grade, but to continue training, because nothing worse than someone's got a black belt and then stops and it's no good. We don't have color grades as such. We just have t-shirts, and t-shirt is green to coach, then black from coach to instructor.
Are you a level 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, cool. Let's say if you're going into I don't know, a ninjutsu dojo or something like that, you'd refer to your trainer or your teacher as sensei the whole time, I think. Is there any kind of title like that or is there any kind of words you say at the beginning of a lesson or that kind of thing?
No. People call me Bernie.
Yeah.
That's my nickname, so everyone calls me Bernie. People will call me Chief, and I'm quite comfortable with that.
Because you're a chieftain.
Yeah.
That's great.
Or Bernie. Yeah. I'm answer to both. Just don't call me early, as they say.
They say that, or at least some of my buddies who've studied martial arts have told me that the most important moves are the first ones you learn.
Yes, basics.
You say the same thing for Bata?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the basics.
If somebody was going into their very first couple of classes or so of Bata, what's the first moves they would learn? What's the first thing you teach them?
The first thing you teach them is called the reset position, and this is just your basic guard. And the reset position looks very strange because you're holding the stick in front of you. And this is called your shield. And basically it's your shield. The stick is your shield, sword in your shield. And this, I think, links back to sort of more older fencing work. but the shield is in front and it provides a barrier for you to protect yourself. And you look at what was called we do punches, not strikes. So you'd look at what's called the lead punch or the reverse punch. And these would be the two basic punches you'd learn. And then you learn to defend yourself. My goal with Bata is that people, no matter what their age, and we have a great range of people throughout the system, people from children from 9, 10, up to, I think my oldest one is Nick over in Canada, and he's 83, and he continues to train with me. And the whole idea of the training is you come along and you train, and even if you never come back, you're going to learn how to block and defend yourself. So we look at blocking, and which is called jump stick blocking, where you jump your hands on the stick. And this is because my hands are in front, my hands would be the target. So we jump hands out of the way to get away from that. So if someone's trying to smash my fingers, I move my fingers or move my hands. But I'd also jump over the thorns, because we would leave the thorns on the stick. It's on the blackthorn. On other sticks, you would leave the thorns on, and the thorns are used to rip the flesh. So you would tear the flesh, tear the flesh on the hands, tear the flesh on the face, and you would use that jump to turn and form a barrier to protect yourself, which it's hard to explain on the microphone.
We'll bash out a video as well, kind of thing. Yeah, so you'll be able to see it somewhere.
Exactly, you'll find it somewhere. And if not, go look at www.doyleirishstick.com, and we're on there, and there's finder instructors and stuff there. And if not, please reach out to me. But yeah, this is the basics we were taught. And one of the things people say about classes is, well, how do you not all get hurt? Because you're all whacking each other with shillelaghs. We don't get hurt because we look after our students, and we look after each other, and we're all very respectful. So we would use techniques, and yes, you're going to get a little clip every now and then. You're going to get a bit of a hit, but it's not going to, thank God, touch wood, we had no bad injuries. Everyone looks after each other. And this is part of the faction, the whole idea of the faction. Faction is a family. These are your family. These are your friends. So you go to a hedge school, and you go to train. And we call them hedge schools because in tradition in Ireland, that's where they were taught. They were taught in a hedge school. They're taught on the side of the road. They're taught in a field. So we all look after each other. So there's no injuries. And we have kit and everything else. So we can get kitted up with protective gear, and we can hit each other. And it's loads of fun. It's really good crack. And if you had a bad, stressful day, nothing better than belting somebody with a shillelagh, I can tell you.
If they're let's say if you're doing let me think, jiu-jitsu, if someone's practicing jiu-jitsu, at some point pretty early on, in fact, I think you'll have to buy a gi, a uniform for it, and that's not just to look cool, it's for the training. There's techniques with it. When somebody's gets serious about wanting to learn bata, do they have to get a shillelagh or a blackthorn stick? And is there a regulation type one you use? Like, has the what do you call them? The pins or the pricks? The
thorns.
The thorns. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is where we differ for a lot of martial arts, because the shillelagh you get is a shillelagh that suits you. So you look at the weight of the shillelagh, you look at the height, and we generally measure from the hip bone down to the ground, because this provides you with both the perfect length to defend yourself, but it also gives you protection on your shield. So you're not just protected where your two hands are, you've got like 6 inches the other side, which is protecting you. So the shillelagh will be the thing that you'll probably buy first. And then we have t-shirts reflecting the grades. So green is 1 to 3, and then black is 4 to 5. The shillelagh is a very personal weapon. It's like I was saying to Bridsley earlier on about how the stick fighters would name their stick. They would, because they form a close relationship with that stick, because they hold that stick all the time. So it becomes your weapon. When you train with it all the time, you know the feel of it, you know how heavy it is, you know how it'll move, how it react. But training, starting off, a lot of times you'll buy a lighter stick, because you're going to build yourself up to a heavier stick, because you can't swing a heavy stick all the time if your muscles aren't used to it. So a shillelagh would be, we do training sticks as well, and there's some great teachers out there, great makers out there, TJ Medlin, John Border, Brian Purdy. There's some great
these are shillelagh makers, traditional shillelagh makers,
trainer makers. Now trainers are slightly different. Trainers are just very smooth sticks with a kind of carved knob at the end. If you want a proper shillelagh, then you'd look at people like Colin Cribben, Declan Casey, people like that. And these are traditional Irish stick makers, and these guys are some of the best in their craft. So if you want to go to get a proper shillelagh, these are the guys you go to. But if you're starting off and you want to get a training stick, then the best thing to do, and I recommend this to everybody, is go to a charity shop, find an old walking stick, and train with it, because this will get your muscles used to it. This will get you get your body used to the movements and the techniques. And once you've done that, then that's fine. You can then move on to a shillelagh. But it's entirely up to you and your budget. I mean, we don't charge. We're not in this for money. So we charge people, I think, with 10 euros a session, but that's about it. It's just get your t-shirt, and it's a really fun night out, because it's a family feeling. So yeah, this is what I'm trying to make it as Irish as possible. I don't want it to be like Cobra Kai. Everyone goes in there and screams at you, because what's the point of that?
Yeah.
You want to go. You can't wait to go. You can't wait to go and see the lads. You can't wait to have a fun night out, and that's what we're about.
What other ways do you try to make it bring it back to its Irish roots? Like you were talking about, referring to clubs as hedge schools,
yeah.
and referring to like the highest ranking as a chieftain kind of thing. And is there any other aspects like that you put into it to kind of bring it to its roots as much as you can?
Well, the rank chieftain is not my idea. It was my teacher's idea.
Fair, yeah.
I don't want people thinking, oh, he's to promote himself to this guy. No, he promoted me to this a couple of years ago, and I accept the rank, and I am the rank. But dealing with Ireland, we're trying to promote it throughout Ireland through various projects. We've just done a great project with a group from Dublin, and I've completely forgotten their name. We're trying desperately it's trying to be accepted back into the mainstream. That's the hard thing. People don't look at us as they think it's something that's been made up, and they don't look at their history. All they have to do is log on to Ondukas, and I hope Ondukas send me some royalties, because I've mentioned them now about 3 times.
Is it the schools collection we're talking
That's
about?
That's the one, yeah.
The National Folklore Collection.
That's the one, yeah.
I use that huge amount.
It's brilliant.
It's unbelievable.
Well, look at if you go on to Dukas and have a look, and if you're in your area, have a look at all you do is either put stick fighter, blackthorn, shillelagh, whatever you want in your area, and it'll come up. And most areas have got some links to it, history to it. I mean, Manor Hamilton, I was told, I haven't seen this myself, that apparently at one point there was a guy, an old boy in the pub. He was this is years back, and it was the 12th of July, and they were having the Orangemen coming down the street, marching down the street, and he had a few drinks, and as he picked up a shillelagh, he went outside and had a discussion with them, shall we say, until the police were called and pulled him off and arrested him. But he's out there swinging a shillelagh. So, and again, I haven't read this, so I don't know, but I was told the story. So yeah, have a look. It's here. It's our heritage. It's part of our history. If you look at the Irish or the Celtic legends, Cuchulainn, Finn McCool, all these people of Irish mythology, they would have been taught shillelagh. That's one of the first weapons they would have been shown. So yeah, it's there. It's part of our history. So embrace it and grab onto it and have a look.
Playing slightly devil's advocate, so can it be used as a modern self-defense system, considering that unlike maybe a few hundred years ago, I don't know how often people walk around with sticks, like just not in a class, just walk around on the street with sticks?
Great question.
Yeah.
Yes, it can.
Okay.
Because if you look at the movements are training the hands, are training the body, training the feet. So your confidence is going to go up, because first of all, you've got a big old stick coming at you, but second of all, the movements are kind of pugilistic boxing movements, and you're using your open hands, you're using your fist, you're kicking, you're even putting arm locks on and stuff like that. So yeah, it can be used, and it's training. The Filipinos say is that the stick trains the hand, trains the knife. Irish stick is the same. Irish stick trains the hands to fight, but it also trains the mind. So the mind will tell you when you're being attacked. It'll see the movement long before the opponent decides to throw it at you, and then you enter in and you, should we say, subdue the opponent in a nice way.
Right. Well, that's good to know. I mean, so there is very good reason. Just someone who just wants a martial art for self-defense, and if they're in Ireland and from Ireland and want to do one that connects them more to Ireland, why not this one? All that can be used. Is there stick fighting in another part of the world? You mentioned the Philippines there.
Yeah, there's stick fighting all over the world. Well, the stick is the first weapon that people used.
Fair.
So they went out and picked something up heavy up and then whacked somebody in the side of the head. The system, the beauty about Irish stick is that it's very fluid in that sense, because someone would do something and he would catch a load of people out and they would go, right, how do I defend against that? So they would then defend against it and do something else. And this is how the system naturally evolved. Irish stick's a very natural system. It's very natural in the body. You don't have to stretch your body beyond its limits. You're learning how to fight, but you're learning how to punch on a short distance with a lot of power. And it can be used indoors. A lot of people think, oh, the shillelagh can be, you're going to go outside, we're going to be in a bog or a field somewhere. But actually indoors, it's just as lethal, It's a great weapon for close-in fighting. And that's what we do. It's a very close-in, destroy the opponent and finish it and go home.
Yeah.
I was trying to look at starting a sort of charity to help, because in Ireland we have a lot of people living in rural areas, a lot of older people living on their own. And there is a fear associated with that, the fear of isolation. And one of the things I want to look at is bringing Irish stick to those, but in a kind of condensed way, so they can attend a couple of classes, get a very basic form of defense using the stick. And it doesn't have to be a shillelagh; it can be a walking stick. At least then they've got something in their home that can protect them. And age doesn't matter. Like I say, we train people of all different ages, so it's not about being super fit 20-year-old with a six-pack. It's about being able to stand up, pick up that shillelagh, and off you go. So yeah, it's open to everybody. So
Well, one thing I was very curious about is going back, let's say, a few hundred years ago. Was stick fighting a structured martial art where people had lessons and there was structured moves, or did people just haphazardly hit each other with sticks without any training?
Yeah, great. We're having a row on Facebook at the moment with somebody who says that.
All right.
Irish stick was taught by teachers, and the Moon Tour would come down to the head school and he would teach. And every day of the week he'd be at a different school teaching different factions, or different people within the faction. The factions would have their own styles of fighting. So you'd have, like, maybe in Cork you'd have one style of fighting, maybe in Clare another. So it was a structured martial art. And according to British reports, the Irish were very martial. It was very disciplined martial art. So they would be training every night. And even when the teacher wasn't there, groups of guys would get together, because if you want to fight someone, you've got to train to be the best. So this is what they would do. They would practice until it became muscle memory, until it became a natural part of their reaction and their body movements. So yes, it was a very structured martial art.
Right.
And again, it can be taught from father to son. And again, it would be structured. It would be taught, and talked to Glenn about his dad teaching him, and he said, he used to dread Saturday mornings because that's when the cartoons would be on. His dad would come in, turn the telly off, put on some Irish music, and take him out, and they'd go training, and it would be structured training. So yeah, a very structured system.
Right. I was genuine, because when I first heard about stick fighting, well, I heard about it years ago the first time, but when I heard about it more recently, I've without knowing anything about it, I remember thinking, was like in 1750 were they actually using it like that, or were guys just meeting and hitting each other with sticks kind of thing? But I knew nothing about it. I wasn't sure myself. I was very curious. Yeah.
One of the great testaments about it, if you look at the my brain's gone dead. If you look at foreign forces, when the Irish used to come over, they used to hire the Irish because when obviously we would go and fight the English, so you'd have the English in Ireland, and the French and the Germans would recruit Irish, and the word's going around my head.
Like soldiers,
yeah, soldiers. What were they called? For soldiers for hire.
Oh, mercenaries.
Mercenaries, that's it. Yeah. So they'd hire Irish mercenaries, and one of the first things they would ask was whether they're a stick fighter. Because with a stick fighter, it was so easy to train them on the sword, and this is going back a bit, but they would always train them, to train them with the sword, because once they knew they could stick fight, the sword was a natural progression. And I found this out myself. I was in Prague, and we have a great club in Prague with Radek and with Crack, and Daniel's joining up, and they're a great bunch of lads. But they're very much into sword sword fighting. If you look at Prague, Prague is just mad about swords. People be on the bus and train with carrying swords.
Fencing?
Yeah, fencing and HEMA,
Ah,
historical European martial arts.
cool.
And one of the guys, Radek, brought me to a sword class, and it was a Viking sword class, which is really good fun. And I picked up the sword, and he was showing me the sword work. And because of the Irish stick, the sword flows naturally into the hand, and it's just a great. So it kind of proves to me that I'd heard this story and I'd seen this in print about Irish mercenaries, but actually to feel it, and go, yeah, actually now I can see how this worked, you know. So it's a very structured martial art. It always has been. It's a very disciplined martial art.
Yeah. Groovy. And like, I mean, you mentioned it there. You practiced other martial arts, or you've mastered other martial arts. It sounds like.
I wouldn't say I've mastered all the martial.
Well, you did black belts, or
Yeah, but that's only a student.
okay.
You never black belts aren't gods. Black belts are just a higher level grade, and they're so different. You know, you get to a black belt, then your studies change and you move on. You know?
Okay. I see. I've got buddies who play. Do you ever play World of Warcraft, like MMOs, those kinds of things?
No.
Okay, there's fair enough. I've only played a little bit. I've got a good few buddies that play it, but like at different points in the game, the max level will be different. Like at one point, 80 was the max level, and it would take you a long time to get to level 80. But when you get to level 80, what the guys always would say is, and this isn't the martial arts, we're talking about a video game here, but what they would always say is level 80 is when the game begins. Even though it took you a long time to get there, no, that's actually when the game starts. Then there's loads of other stuff you can do after that. I don't know if that's a similar analogy.
That is a great analogy, and that's how your learning changes.
Yeah.
So you start to see how, and an Irish stick is the same.
Yeah.
You know, people will get to a certain level, and I've been doing this now, like I said, for about 12, 13 years. And you see different things all the time. You know, it's not people go, oh, this is the set, and we do what are called the rinkas, the dances.
Mm-hmm.
So we've like they're two forms, but you will see those forms as a student and see them as how, you know, this is what we do, this is how they're set out. And then as you develop and you start doing them more and more and doing with people, you say, oh, actually, this now can be used for this, and this here can be used for something else. This can be a strike, but it's also a block, and it's an amazing kind of thing to see that. And that's what it is. You get to that level, and then you start seeing things differently and training differently.
Is it a competitive sport? Can people compete in competitions with it?
They used to be. That all kind of stopped. I think it's about 2012, 2013. It stopped.
Right.
But we are looking at bringing it back. The problem with competition is you take all the good stuff out. I mean, you can't really kill someone in a competition. I mean, even how much I know, I've fought people who tried to kill me, but there are things you can't do. You know, so yeah, I'm very much to competition. I think we do a lot of sparring as well, which is good fun. But obviously, you've got to have the kit to do the sparring. So we provide the sparring at the club, but ideally, we like people to buy their own sparring kit, especially if they've been sweating in it. But sparring is a great way of testing out the system and testing you out as a fighter, you know. But yeah, there's no competitions yet, but we're hoping to bring competition in.
Groovy. Do you ever do international or national meetups or regional meetups kind of thing between other practitioners?
We haven't got that big as yet.
There, yeah.
We have people who we go and meet each other, and we're very close. Like, it's a very friendly very organization, but a very friendly meetup, you know.
Yeah.
It's just factions meeting up and train together, you know. Like, if you sweat and you shed blood together, you're going to be like a brother, and that's the way we look at it, you know.
Are you aware of any martial arts films that use Irish stick fighting specifically as their, like, you know, kind of like the Karate Kid, but instead it's like the, you know, Bataireacht, yeah, the Shillelagh Kid, yeah, Shillelagh lad, yeah.
The old Shillelagh lad. That sounds like a song. No, there's no. You had the gangs in New York, which was a sort of historical reference to the dead rabbits in New York. But to be honest, there isn't really anything as yet. And if anybody's listening, they want to do it, get in contact, because we'd love to do it.
You'd be on for being like let's say if it was an independent or student movie and they needed like a what do you call it, like an advisor, you'd be on for that.
Absolutely, anything to help spread the word. That's my goal, is to spread it, so as much people interested in Irish stick or Bata as possible. And it's a very fast system, so it's really cool to do. So yeah, it's not all jumping around like doing jigs and stuff. It's basically very quick I'm trying to say this diplomatically without getting myself in a lot of trouble. But yeah, it's a very quick martial art and it's good fun.
Right. Did you have any martial arts heroes growing up kind of thing?
I did. I had. Well, everyone did. I mean, in the 80s, you had Chuck Norris and Jackie Chan,
Yeah.
and Bruce Lee, of course.
I was gonna say it was my dad's a black belt in Shotokan karate. His was Bruce Lee. Just seen Fist of Fury and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, Bruce Lee, brilliant. I then got on to Steven Seagal, which
Yeah.
was one of mine, and he kind of ruined it for me. And then there was lots of others, but I kind of got back into. I was very much the Japanese martial arts, into the Aikido, Aikido sort of stuff.
Mm.
So Marai Shiba, and then I got into Sakaka Takeda, who was one of the last sort of samurai guys, and his life story was fascinating. It was really interesting. But now I'm old, and I don't have any heroes except my teacher. So it's all about people are people, and that's heroes let you down.
All right, well let's get wrapping this up because after this we're gonna go practice some. We're gonna look at a little bit of stick fighting. My first time ever, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So yeah, Bernard, thanks for the conversation. Thanks for teaching me and everyone so much about Irish stick fighting and getting more out there. If you want to, where can people get you? Where can people?
Well, look me up on Facebook, Bernard Leddy. You can look if you want to contact me directly. It's my email is Bataireacht, BATAIREACHT @yahoo.com. We've also got a website. It's called www.doyleirishstick.com, and that'll give you a list of instructors and coaches around the world. I'm also doing seminars. I've got a seminar in Belfast on the 31st of August. If you reach out, please, you're more than welcome. And for anyone out there who's interested in taking it more seriously, I'm doing an intensive training course in October in Kiltyclaw up the road. So please reach out. My goal is to spread this throughout the country, and my goal is to have this in every community centre in Ireland where it should be. And you're all very welcome to come along, and there's no fear. It's good fun, it's good crack, and it's Irish, which makes it the best.
Well said. All right, thanks a million, Bernard. Let's check out some of this some moves.
Brilliant.
Right
Look
on.
forward to it.